Welcome to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your host, Regina Partain Bergman, CEO of Bridgeport Strategy. I am delighted to have another group with us today, a wonderful co host, and the panelists that she's brought with her. So let me get right to it and introduce you to our guest co host today, who is Miss Jaime Ellithorpe of 540 Strategies. 540 Strategies. Is that how you say that, Jaime? 540 or 540?
Well, it's actually 540, but we might need 540 strategies sometimes to grow our
That's
businesses, or at least it probably feels that way sometimes, doesn't it?
It does sometimes, doesn't it? Welcome, Jaime. So glad that you agreed to be our guest co host today. Would you take a moment, share a bit with us about your journey, how you've gotten to this place, who it is that you serve, and why that's important to you?
Yeah. So my story starts way back when in corporate America, when I was a burnt out, unhappy corporate executive wondering what I was doing. So I ended up hiring a personal development coach to help me get some new insight, and it completely changed my life. So that was the beginning of my journey, and the rest is kind of history. But how I got started in my business was that I was determined to find joy in the work that I did because there wasn't much joy with what I was doing. So if anyone wants to know, 540 is actually the equivalent of that word joy. So that is the philosophy of my business, that I want to bring joy to the people that I serve. And I also want them to have a deep sense of joy and purpose in the work that they do among everything else. So that's kind of the philosophy here at 540 Strategies. But I ended up working with a lot of service-based B2B businesses. I grew up in a small business. My parents actually had their own business, and unfortunately, it failed. And because of that, they got a divorce. And as a matter of fact, oddly enough, today is actually would have been their anniversary. But anyway, I saw the devastation of what that did to my family. And I was determined that I didn't want anyone else to feel that pain, because not only is it painful for the business owner when something happens, but it's that ripple effect and all the other lives that it does affect when something's not working. So I've been determined to bring the strategies that I feel are important to small business owners to the forefront. And one of those is having a marketing and sales system for their business, that if they don't have a way to consistently get in front of their ideal prospective clients and have a system that brings about the solutions that these clients need, it's very, very hard to grow and scale a business. So that's the start of where we work together at 540 Strategies, is figuring out a system to help businesses grow. And alongside that, because I was so influenced by personal development, I've also come to realize, after coaching a lot of business owners, that it's not always about the outside strategies as much as it is the internal workings of their mindset and what they've got going on the inside. So we work on both sides, internal and external strategies, to really grow strong, heart-centered businesses.
I love it. And I did not realize how many things we have in common until you shared that. One of the mottos in my business is save a business, save a marriage. Because, yeah, that failing business has such an impact, or struggling, might not be failing, but might just be struggling. That has such an impact on that home environment. And you're right, there's a ripple effect. There's a generational impact. Not just this generation, but there's a generational impact that happens when that family fails.
And with the customers too. I think about the business with my parents, and in some ways they had a very successful business, and to think about all the customers that they could no longer serve when that business had to close, we've got that ripple effect out in the world.
Exactly. All the way to, the nation, right? It is a ripple that goes on and on, either way, successful or if a business fails. So I love the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Jaime, would you please introduce each of our guest panelists that you've brought with you today and have them share a bit about their journey, who they serve, and why?
Sure. Do we want to give each person a chance after I introduce them, or
Yes.
would you like me to go
One
around?
at a time. One at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. So my first lovely guest is Vicki Winkler, and she is a marketing expert in her own right and really has a flair for the visual sides of helping a business look really good through their marketing. So I'll let Vicki tell more about her business.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jamie. And I've been working with Jamie, and she's absolutely fantastic. So, my business began. I was I originally was in the automotive industry, saw the first Saturn car roll off the line, and then was the marketing director at a large nonprofit after serving a couple of years in the Peace Corps. And so then I developed my business, the marketing shop. And as Jamie said, we do graphic design and branding and other kinds of marketing things, and have a heart for working with large nonprofits to help them to expand their reach and their impact in the world and what they're doing through the marketing assistance that we provide them. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicki. Yeah, our next marketing expert is Dee Knott. So Vicki helps us with the visuals. Dee helps us with the words. And I have come to learn that is equally important as having the perfect marketing message that attracts your ideal client. So I'll let Dee tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking I'd love to hear origin stories of how people get into business. And I grew up in a military family, so entrepreneurship was not on my radar. And it wasn't until I was a lot later in life where a motorcycle accident took me out of a job that I had to figure out what I should do. And somebody said, "Hey, you should be a real estate agent." And so, okay. But what I realized quickly during that journey was that I had no idea how to market a business, and I was paying for these horrible leads that's back in the day when the lead gen companies started showing their ugly heads and selling one lead to 30 people, if not more. And so it just made me mad, and it started me on the journey to discovering how to market that business. And I didn't even get a chance to market that business because I just fell in love with marketing. So that's kind of where I started, leading me up to now the journey, like Jamie said, and understand I am not a copywriter, but I knew if something, I could tell that words were wrong. And that just drove me nuts that I couldn't figure out how the heck to do that, which led me to invest in being a story brand guide. And since then, it just changed my business, it's changed my client's business. And it's very important to me to work on the fund. I almost feel like my business is the step that you take before you go and purchase other marketing things. Like if it's going to be, I think there's a difference between strategic and tactical marketing, and it's all super important. So I want to help them build that foundation. So, because if they don't understand their customers, they're going to have ineffective marketing strategies, unclear messaging, and really poor business direction. So that's where I love to come in and help them build that foundational piece. And I have a ready, aim, fire system and process that I take them through to do that, and just so that they can start out with something really powerful. So I appreciate Jamie helping me out with everything that she does for me on LinkedIn, and she's been amazing to have in my life. So thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, another star player that we have here today is Pete Maston. He helps businesses with one of the biggest pieces of business success, and that is the people. He has a great training platform that can help frontline workers, staffs be trained up easily and effectively. And I don't want to steal this thunder. So Pete, tell us about Learny.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. By the way, I'm glad nobody stole this line. You're a joy to work with. So I had it the whole time thinking, someone else is going to use it. So I'll give you my condensed journey. I was a veteran of the .com era, came out of that in 2003, and had fallen in love with startups. We started up a company in Atlanta called Multicast Media. I did that for a number of years until that company got sold. Then I was in a big company for a while, and I started experiencing that I don't really like big companies. So the problem with being an entrepreneur is that eventually, if you sell your company, you end up in a big company typically, and then you're like, oh, I got to get out of this. But I did that 3 times. And my last company I sold it right at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a training company. It was a traditional learning management company, a video-based learning company. And I noticed a few things. One thing I noticed is that traditional training done via the mechanisms of learning management systems often doesn't actually achieve the results that people want, right? Because people really, the typical model is the HR department creates or buys a bunch of content, compliance content primarily, shoves it down at the workers. They all hate taking it. They turn the sound off and then answer the 3 or 4 questions at the end. And so we wanted to do something different. So when we founded Learny, we wanted to do, a couple of things. One is we wanted to create a great company. So we started out the company, we're a certified B Corp, which is fairly unusual for startups, right? I mean, we went through the whole process of becoming a B Corp because we wanted to sort of set a higher standard for ourselves. But the other thing we did is we wanted to create a product that people love to use, right? That found it easy. And we wanted to create a training product that allowed companies to allow their very knowledgeable people in their company to create peer learning and share that across. And we were kind of a lone voice in the night, 3 or 4 years ago, because people weren't baked in. The last couple of years that people are starting to get it, that you can actually capture the knowledge of your crowd. And so we've started really, and through Jamie's help, we've actually gotten a lot of traction and been able to grow the company to where we're at. And that's kind of our path to date.
Awesome.
Yeah. Our next guest, the one word I think of when I think of Catherine Knabb is a connector. She's a fantastic connector for people who are looking to get into business. She's a franchise consultant and does all of the heavy lifting of the research and pairing her clients with the perfect opportunities. And for business owners who are already in business, she loves to connect them through the power of networking. She's a franchise owner with Network in Action, and I will let her tell more of her story and what she does.
Thank you, Jamie. Like many of you guys, I started in corporate life and worked in corporate life for close to 30 years. And near the end of that, I saw a lot of choices being taken away from people, from everybody, from families, from elders. And I reasoned that the only thing that would make somebody stand up and fight for what's right for their families might be if they have the guts to run their own business, and maybe they have the guts to take on those big fights. So I learned right about then that there was such a thing as franchise consulting, because somebody reached out to me and wanted to help me get into business. They weren't asking for my social security number, so I went through the learning process. And what I realized in listening to that person share information with me and take me through an education process was that all of my background in analytics, leading people through projects, and mentoring people along the way was what he was doing with me. So I wanted to do that. So I've learned a lot about franchise brands, studied them constantly because franchise brands are always changing. And I really try to pair people to something that's a really good fit for them and their families. And through that, I found Network in Action. And that's a really great way for me to give value to people in my local community and in the LinkedIn world as well. So I lead 3 groups, and I bring people together to help them help each other grow their businesses through education, business growth ideas, and good referral partnering.
Awesome.
All right. And our final guest is Steve Kidd. He is a fantastic marketer in his own right, but his specialty is helping people write and become best-selling authors. Mm-hmm. He has a wonderful process of helping people do that very quickly. So instead of it taking a year, it only takes a couple of months to be seen as a thought leader in their space. So I'll let Steve tell us more about that.
Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a 3rd-generation minister, an international best-selling author of 22 books and counting. I've been a marketing company actually since the mid-'80s, in internet space since literally before the word the internet existed. And we've worked the last 17 years exclusively with authors, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and all the marketing that goes beyond. I just love the exciting journey of bringing words out and using those to help make an impact in people's lives. And I get the opportunity to do that every day. And that's who I am.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to learn more about each of you as we go through this today. So as I'm listening to you introduce yourselves, the thought that came to me is I'm wondering, first of all, I can tell there's a lot of collaboration amongst this group, right? Just maybe not all of you together, but certainly different pairings of collaboration here. So let's talk about what has been the most powerful collaboration that you've been involved with, why it was so powerful, and what was the impact of that collaboration? Vicki, you're nodding. You got a story to tell?
For me?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Came immediately to mind. I was like, yep.
I can see that.
It wasn't a pick me, but yeah.
We pick you, Vicki.
So I have a partner. She's a very good friend of mine, and she is a nonprofit fundraising consultant. And we are, in fact, going to be teaching a live webinar next month, our first one together. That is why marketing and fundraising need to be BFFs. And so her and I have grown a very close relationship the last few years in working with nonprofits because we collaborate so well together, and we realize that, hey, we're working with the same audience here, and the things we're doing are so integrated with one another that they can hardly be pulled apart. And so let's join forces and let's do this together. And so a huge part of my marketing efforts in 2024 is this collaboration with this good friend and associate of mine, bringing large nonprofits together and for the marketing and fundraising efforts. So yeah, it's been just a wonderful, amazing collaboration. It's just like magic happening in the things that we do together. So
that's awesome. What has, and a follow-up to that, and then we'll hear from some of the others. What has been the impact for you in terms of increased exposure because of partnering with her?
So I mean, it's the leveraging of her kind of group and her influence in the nonprofits and which is a completely different group, even though we're in the same kind of geographic area. The people I know are not the people she knows, and when we bring them together, I bring someone on board, she brings someone on board, and the end product is so much more powerful than what each of us could do separate from each other. And the agencies and the nonprofits that we've helped have just been amazed. They just, we will do an appeal campaign together, and they'll say, this is not like anything else that I have done before or that I could have done myself, and bringing the two of you together. So the impact is just having a more powerful, package than we could separately.
And being in front of people that aren't normally in your audience. Right?
Absolutely.
I like to use a word that accountants don't like. We're commingling our audiences, right? Who else can share a story of a collaboration that you've had that was powerful, and what came of it for you, and what was the impact overall from it? Pete?
Yeah, I'm happy to. When it's funny because board collaboration can mean a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So I think about we have a partnership program. That's all collaboration. But the big one for me over the last 3 years has been actually the startup team that we put together. And we wanted that, like, I've started companies where it was me and one other person or whatever. This one it was kind of go big or go home. So we started with 8 people from wildly different, divergent backgrounds, but I've known them all for 20 something years plus, but they didn't all know each other.
Right.
And so building this team over the last 3 years has been, it's a joy. I mean, it has been a lot of fun, but as with any time you have people involved, there's occasionally, but we've really built, and I've seen two of the founders that were most contentious 2 years ago are really close friends now. Right. It's just great. And to see and respect each other's differences now,
right,
the way they didn't 3 years ago. So I think that would be right now my biggest story of collaboration is how my founders team is, and of course, growing a business is always tough because you got to be really careful who you bring in. And also we're sort of, we all evaluate new people as they come in and figure out, is this a good fit for our culture? But I would say that's my biggest example.
That is a huge factor in effective collaboration, isn't it? Is getting the right people, getting people with the same values. So, I mean, kudos to you folks that some of those people who might not have gotten along as well in the beginning stuck it out to develop long enough to develop those relationships
Right.
that fuel it, right?
And I don't think all having the same values actually is all. I mean, you don't want criminals in the organization. We'll leave them out. But I think, broadly speaking, you can accommodate a wide variety of values and backgrounds, and you should be able to. Right? You should be able to.
Right.
I think we're more in that vein. Is
Okay.
I personally, when we were sort of choosing the team, didn't think, oh, we need to get everybody who just lines up with what I think.
You need that. You need some diversity for sure.
You need different voices, different perspectives. Yeah. I'm very proud to say, from just a gender perspective, we're almost 50-50, or we are 50-50 actually. And from we've got a lot of different voices, different, so that has been a challenge at times, but it's also been because we're also all very outspoken about things. So we don't, and nobody's holding back. It's a family group, but it's fun.
Yeah. And so some of what I'm thinking of in terms of values is like honesty, integrity, those kinds of things. You want people to have those same types of values that you have. Otherwise, it can really get uncomfortable, for want of a better word.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Jamie?
All right. I was going to say, I'll raise my hand. I'm a collaborator, I think, by nature, but I'll share one that I'm currently working on. So as we all know, there's many, many moving pieces to growing a business. But from my vantage point, it's marketing strategy and lead generation. So I'm always looking to collaborate with people that can enhance that particular aspect of the service that I provide for clients to give them a more holistic approach to growing their business. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is I'm working in partnership with a sales trainer and a sales coach. And he's helping me build out what I guess I'll call the back end of our lead gen process. So one of the things after working with some business owners, I've kind of seen maybe they could use a little bit of help with is what to do once we get a prospect on a meeting or a call, and how to facilitate that to be a powerful meeting really for both sides, both parties involved, so that both people can walk away with value and a next step in either building that relationship or making an introduction or potentially doing business together. So me and this partner have been working together to really line out a process of what those meetings look like so that I can create a guide for my clients to help them better serve the people that show up to their appointments.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Kath?
So one of the things that occurs to me is that collaboration might not always be a paid work. So we've had several examples of that. Some of the greatest collaboration I've been a part of was where teams of people on a recurring basis, several times a year, would spend quite a few hours trying to teach other people in prep of a certification exam. And it was all voluntary. It went on for years and years, and they would redo it every 3 or 4 months for a new batch of students, even up to recently where a new business was getting stood up in the Memphis area, and they didn't have they chose to do things in a way that maybe some other businesses don't do. They didn't do all the 3 to 4 month marketing. So on the front end, several of us got together and we did some in-person stuff on their soft open day that we certainly weren't paid for, but it was going to be a new business in the community. And so we just made as much of it as we could. And it was very helpful internet-wise for that business. And a few days later, they were having quite a big crowd in their place. So collaboration is paid, it's unpaid. And sometimes you have to extend yourself in a way and see what it comes back with later on. But I think a lot of learning and a lot of development and a lot of new ideas happen because of collaboration, especially
Absolutely.
on the side where there's not a pay. You're extending yourself to get to something new and great.
Yeah, along with that, Kath, one of the things I think about is when we're talking collaboration, 1 + 1 does not equal 2; it equals 11. So, Steve.
The first thing that came to my mind really was networking. Networking organizations. I've had the privilege of being actually the first male radio host for the eWomen Network. That was going back 9.5 years ago now. My radio show that's still going started there on their network. And that was a real privilege to be part of that. But those monthly meetings and going and, sometimes you were meeting brand new people that it was their first time there. And sometimes you were at a table with folks that you had developed relationships with. And yet to be able to share, eWomen has a really good structure for theirs about, both what do you need as well as what could you offer to help. And that's the kind of the key component of that. And so initially when you said collaboration, networkings, especially like eWomen and other organizations like that I've been part of, was really what came to my mind.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Dee?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking, I panicked when you said that. I was like, oh, crap, have I collaborated? It's like, yeah, that's how I built everything. And it's funny because I'm looking for free sources of collaboration. And I found that the networking calls as I was growing my process and just like, all right, I'm just going to be pitching this to strangers, get their collaboration, and knowing that they all have come from diverse backgrounds, either they're business coaches or sales coaches, there's people that have been in business for years. And so I would look at their faces, and as I'm describing my process and looking for them to either look like, what the heck are you talking about? Or wow, that's awesome. So yeah. it was through that I honed my process with them. And so that kind of collaboration to me was just gold. And being able to put myself out there and just say these things to complete strangers. So, and then I'm looking for like everybody's describing, I do think back to my sales coach, my business coach, and they were absolutely pivotal in being collaborators for me. So but I'm also looking for those opportunities going forward of the people that have my audience. So it will be a business coach. It will be a business broker who's trying to help somebody build the valuation of their business. So now that's where I will pivot to figuring out how to collaborate with them and bring as much value to them so that they can bring value to me.
Excellent. And I'm hearing a lot of in our approaches to collaboration here, which I think is awesome because we don't want to get stuck in a channel of this is the only way you can collaborate. No, there's so many ways and so many benefits to it. So let me ask you this. Have you ever been involved in a collaboration that didn't work out well? And what did you do in that situation? Without giving names, obviously. And what advice would you give to our listeners around that to keep that from happening to them or to help them get out of a situation if they've gotten in one that's not working? Jamie?
I was going to say, I'll go. I actually have one of those that is kind of going on right now. The first thing that comes to mind is I think it boils down to clarity and communication, that instead of getting, perturbed or upset with that person, stepping back and going, did we both understand that communication the same way? Is that when we came together to do this partnership, there were some things that were probably said, maybe there were some papers that were exchanged in some collaborations, but going back and just with that person and redefining okay, we thought we were here, but we're really over here. So are we going to course correct this? Is there some misunderstandings that have maybe been going on during this time, and get clarity around that, and then figure out what the next step is, and both be okay with maybe it didn't turn out the way that either one of you thought it would. Not every experiment is going to lead to a great result, but figuring out maybe there was a valuable lesson that needed to be learned, or maybe it inspired a new thought to go in a completely different direction, and just really trying to find what nugget of gold is there, because oftentimes, even when things don't work out, it was intended to be that way for a reason. And when you can look for the positive in that, you'll usually find the silver lining.
Agreed. Anybody else have an experience with a collaboration that didn't go as well as you'd like? Steve, I see a little nodding there.
It's one of those kind of situations where you want to try not to drag the whole room down with how horrible it was. All of us have brought people on, consultants, people we collaborate with, things like that, that weren't a good fit. I'm trying to be really nice here. And, and skipping ahead to the thing that I learned is when you start getting that sense within you that this is not a good situation, it's better to end it earlier rather than trying to fix it.
Yeah.
I don't know about anybody else, but for myself, I spent a lot of time working with the person, and helping them, expecting more of them than what they were showing up as. And at the end of the day, in the collaboration that was the last one we were in, I found that I just had to walk away from it. The ideals, the concept, all of it, even though in the beginning was actually my thing that I had done previously to that and had brought this person in, it was worth it to just walk away from it and to be clear of that. And there's a real sense of, I don't know if it goes quite as far as joy, but really definitely freedom when you finally let yourself loose of that connection to people that really aren't serving you well and aren't feeding your soul, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Vicki?
Yeah, so I had a fairly recent experience in a networking group that I was in, and had been in it for a while, and it had kind of stopped working more because of the way my business had changed. And I really had to look at that. And again, like Steve said, I kind of woke up one day and thought, this isn't working, this isn't, and it's not because of the rest of the group members or anything like that. But it was because of how my business was changing, and the relationships that I needed to cultivate were changing. And when I made that decision to leave and move on and do some other things, like you said, Steve, it was kind of a sense of relief, like, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I think that was the right decision. And after I had made the decision to leave, and it was all on good terms, but it was like, wow, that was the right thing to do. And I too, as Steve said, I should have probably done it sooner, before I started to get those negative feelings of, why isn't this working? And is it all of you, or is it me? And so I probably drugged that on longer than I should have. And so I should have gone with more of my first instinct when I realized that things weren't working out.
Yeah. Kath?
I'll say for me, when I've had to make choices like that.
Kath, we're getting a little bit of feedback there.
Sorry, I think.
But not external noise, just feedback. Try it again.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. When I've noticed that in my own situation, it's usually because a mismatch of values becomes evident. And then depending on the nature of the situation, it could be that I elect to just come clear about it and say this isn't going to work. Or if it's something that I'm governing, then I make everything clear and let people choose to self-eliminate. But if a mismatch continues, then it becomes where it can be destructive to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dee?
Yeah, I was sitting here. I haven't really done a lot of collaboration. I think I grew up in a family of 6 kids, and where you're trying to
Lots of collaboration or
you
lack
would think
thereof.
you would think so, but then I always found that it's like outside noise just really messes up my brain, and so bringing somebody else in is really hard, and to collaborate with somebody, and so I find like I need to like work on things and then bring somebody else in to check the work probably, and then I have to go back and work on it again on my own safe space. Never thought I would say that out loud, safe space, but it's just and so I find it very challenging to let somebody else in to work on a project with me on something. So they would have to be really like, it's almost like an assembly line where I could take my thing and hand it off to them to do the next thing, and maybe not like everybody pile in on the one thing.
Which is still collaboration, right?
That's my favorite kind of collaboration. Yeah. Just tell me how great this is and then take it and do something with it.
There you go. Pete, how about you? And you are still muted. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was actually listening to everybody's story, thinking about how many examples of failed collaborations I have, and it's a pretty extensive list. Back in the early 90s, I was still writing code, and we had a lot of, paired coding, right? So you would actually be sitting next to somebody looking at the same screen and writing code together. And that doesn't always work out well. Like, I think that would make D crazy, but that's not even the one I was really first thinking of. The first one was when I was the CTO of this company, Multicast Media, in like 2003. I hired my first 2 guys, and one of them was my head of operations, and the other guy was my head of development. And I remember sitting with them, and they liked each other. They didn't know each other initially, but I introduced them. I knew them both from separately. And I said, you guys, your job, developer guy, your job is to write code as fast as you can. You just we know what we're going to build. We just got to build it. You need to take your team and just pound it out. Your job, Mr. Operations Dude, is to make sure that he never introduces code into production that is broken, right? That breaks our clients. And I said, you guys are friendly right now, but you're going to end up hating each other. And they did. I mean, if the 2 of them would walk up to the elevator at the same time, they wouldn't get on it together.
Oh
yeah, it was bad. And anyway, so I think in the end, I learned a lot from that experience. That that's not necessarily to set it up as an adversarial relationship like that as a manager or whatever was a poor decision. Although at some level, I'm not sure what options you have there. You kind of you need both of those roles, but maybe you find people who already hate each other. I don't know. But that was probably one of my. Although they're both still friends with me now.
Well, that's good.
They still don't like each other, though.
You don't invite them both to the same dinner party. Got it.
No.
But I think that's so important. The points that you bring out are so important. Not every collaboration is going to be a winner, right?
Right.
But the winners far outweigh those that don't. And we learn from each of those that don't work out and know how to do it a little better the next time. So I have one last question for you. Well, it's a 2-part question. Do you see the work you do with your clients as collaborating with them? Okay, seeing some nods. I do. I see that as collaboration as well. What do you do? How do you handle it when that collaboration is not working out? Anybody ever had that experience? Yeah, Pete?
Sure. I mean, it's not uncommon to have to fire clients.
Yeah,
right?
Not fun.
It's sometimes it's really painful. But if you've got either a toxic client that is just causing you or your team
yes,
that's I think Steve said it well, which is sometimes when you sniff that out, you're better to end it early.
The sooner the better.
But it is quickly as you can once you've determined that it's not salvageable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Jamie, you were talking about the stress factors a few minutes ago. You know, that stress level when you terminate that relationship, especially if it's been toxic to your whole staff, is just like, right?
I know. I guess that's the one thing that I learned is early on in my business, I brought on a client and I thought we had a full understanding of what the program was, and he was on board. And like for 2 weeks, he went missing in action. I could not contact him. We didn't have any meetings. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, this isn't working to grow my business. And we were in like a 3-month agreement. And I said, well, you know, part of the reason it's not working is because you went missing in action. And this is like a collaborative partnership. Like I've come in to help you grow your business, but
Right.
there's also things that you have to do to grow your business. And he really, I think he was very young. I don't know if he didn't understand that piece, but it ended up being kind of an ugly termination. Not really, I didn't feel like on my part, but it was really, you know, on his part. And I just kind of learned after that situation that it's kind of like what everyone's saying today is it's better to just let that relationship go. There's, you know, you're just kind of keeping that low, ugly energy looming around if you continue to, you know, take it to court or, you know, even try to arbitrate. It's kind of like, what are you going to end up getting out of it? Because even if you win, you're not going to keep that client anyway. So you're just kind of like holding on to that nasty, ugly energy that's really just weighing you down and really weighing your company down. So in some cases, even though it doesn't seem like the right thing to do, even though we are in this contract driven world and, you know, everyone's signed on the dotted line, it's kind of like, well, how long do you want to hang on to it? Because the longer you hang on to that, even though they signed, the more bad energy that you're bringing into your business.
Agreed. 100%.
So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else have something to add to that, Kath?
I worked with somebody early on who perfectly friendly person, took on a lot of the learning process in terms of the first steps of researching a franchise. But I came to the understanding that they were only ever willing to reach out to a certain part of society and not to the whole of their community. And they were only going to do it in a very limited fashion, like only if they could do it from inside their home. They would not be willing to go out and do the local community networking and things like that. And so I just could not think of any kind of business that would, a franchise business that would work with. And so I asked some very direct questions to get them to the point of saying, no, that's not going to work for me, so that they would self-eliminate.
Yeah. It's important, too, to know who the players are that you're going to be working with. I recall a situation where we took on a client in my staffing firm I had years ago, and the manager and I got on famously. The operations officer was another story altogether. And she gave my staff such a hard time that ultimately, you know, I just said, look, there is no way we can meet your needs and satisfy you, but let me recommend somebody, you know, send you down the road because, and they just, my staff was just like, oh, thank you, you know, because they had to deal with her on a daily basis. And she was not a pleasant person. So yeah, there are lots of lessons to be learned on both sides of collaboration, right? There's, you know, and the sooner we learn those bad ones, as well as the good ones, you know, the better our businesses will be, the greater impact that we get to have on those around us. And ultimately that means the greater impact on the world because of the ripple effect that is created, right? So,
you know, it's interesting to me to think the power of a Zoom call now, because we get to get on a call with somebody and they have to pass the crazy eye test. Where I don't have to like wonder on the phone, like it's like backwards dating. It's like, well, they sound like a perfectly nice person, but then when you meet them in person, it's like, who are you? So to me, that's been very, very instrumental in allowing me to understand. It's like, oh, this isn't somebody I want to work with.
Yeah.
And so it's
good
it's
point.
really weeded out. a lot of crazy situations.
Crazy situations. Yeah.
But then the downside is I don't have a crazy story to tell.
But you have wisdom. You've learned and you have wisdom to share with the rest of us. That's awesome. Well, folks, we have run out of time and we are now going to enter into our wrap-up round, and I'm going to ask Jamie to run the wrap-up round. So Jamie, you'll be calling on everyone, including yourself, to give your final thoughts on collaboration and share your contact information with us. And while you're doing that, I will take that, I'll put your contact information out in the comments for folks to be able to see it. Okay. So Jamie, I turn it over to you.
So thank you for everyone for being here. You've all given such great insight. I don't know what I can really add, but I guess in closing, like some of the people here have said, I think it's lining up with good fits from the beginning and really using not only your head, but really your gut, your intuition. I think looking back, at least in my own business, I've known immediately sometimes that these particular relationships were probably not the best fits. And every time that I've moved forward in them, I've regretted it. And I really commend myself on those relationships that I have just told the person right away, I don't think I can help you. I don't think this is a great fit, and just been okay with that. So that's my best advice is if you just sense that there's really just not a good match, it's better to let it go and just know that there is like a sea out there of amazing people, amazing potential clients, business partners, referral partners. And when you say no, there's always going to be a better yes around the corner. So just keep looking for those yeses and not feel guilty about saying no to the no's, because the no's are a great fit for someone else. Yes. And that's who they're meant to collaborate with and who they're meant to do business with. So you're really giving someone else a gift by saying no, because you're letting that opportunity be there for someone else. The best way to get a hold of me is LinkedIn. I pretty much live there 24/7. So look me up with my ridiculous name that I've spelled out for you here on the screen. And you can also find my website at JaimeEllithorpe.com.
Awesome.
So that's how to find me. Vicki?
Oh, thank you. So I was thinking someone's trash is another person's treasure. And I guess that goes for potential clients as well. So I would say with collaboration is to be creative. When you meet a person or you're doing business with someone, you think this is really working. Like I'm just really clicking with this person. I have a good vibe. I think we might have some things that we could work on together and explore that. Get on the phone, get on a Zoom call and be curious and talk to them about, what are you doing? What do you think? How could we maybe work together to find clients together and maybe collaborate? So that would be mine, is to be creative in ways that you can collaborate with others. And because there's 540 ways at least, right? And so that would be it. And so how to get a hold of me is my website, which is www.tms.marketing. And also, like Jamie, you can follow and find me on LinkedIn because I'm on there all the time as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Dee?
Yeah, I'm as much as I love to innovate businesses, I think there's ways to innovate collaborations as well and find the most unexpected way to collaborate with somebody. So don't take just the obvious looks at things. And I'm working with somebody right now of coming up with a workshop together, and where she was kind of pitching some of the usual things that people would talk about. It's like, we got to turn that on its head and do something different. So it just gets people thinking differently. And I love that kind of stuff. I can't say I hang out as much on LinkedIn as I should. And I have a crazy LinkedIn URL, thanks to somebody's advice, but it's working. And but my website is pointblankstrategic.com, and you can always shoot me a text at 469-336-3606. I see text before I see an email. So
noted. Thank you, Dee. Pete?
Oh, so I'm Pete, and I'm the CEO of Learny, which is the collaborative learning platform. This has been a fascinating conversation because collaboration is a broad term, but that is why we built the product, to allow people to train each other. So thanks for inviting me. My contact is pete@mylearny.com, and our website is www.mylearny.com.
How do we spell learny, just in case people don't know?
Jamie, I love you for asking that question. So it's LEARNIE.com. So it's LEARNIE.com, My Learning. And I think she's probably gonna post it in the chat.
Yep.
Thanks, Pete. Catherine?
Find my mute button. Catherine Knabb. I'm in LinkedIn as Catherine, but people can call me any version of that. I've really enjoyed this conversation today. One of the things that as I meet people and they just sell me, I try to get them to slow down, learn about the other person, and figure out how you can give value first. Be a giver. And I'll point them to that Go Giver book and say, you might want to study up on this a little bit and try again. NAB Consulting. NAB is not always the easiest word to spell. So I created the domain CFO NIA Career Franchise Ownership Network and Action.com to send people to my real website. And I am happy to help people at any time.
Thank you, Catherine. And Steve?
Yeah, you can look up Ask Steve Kidd on just about any of the social medias, and that would be me. Or you can just go to askstevekid.com and hop on my schedule. I love collaborations. I love meeting with people and see, is there connections between us? Is there anything I can do to help you? And I'm absolutely glad to do that. And I think as far as a takeaway, even if you've had a bad collaboration, or if you've had a client that you didn't fire, we talked about firing them, but sometimes we don't because we need the money, being honest, right? Even if you've had those, let that go. Don't hold on to the energy. Let that release from you so that you can show up. Whether it's 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago, it's gone now. And you get to be able to live powerfully right now in the now.
Love that. I love that. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Jamie, for being my guest co-host today and bringing such an amazing panel. This has really been fun to get to know each of you and hear your perspectives on collaboration. And with that, folks, we wrap up another round of collaboration conversations. We hope you'll come check us out again next time. See you later. Bye-bye.